Fantastic. Thank you all for coming today, and thanks for coming to reInvent. Hopefully you're having an educational and wonderful experience so far, and after a couple days, your brains will all be full. Hopefully this will add to that. I have the honor of being your panel moderator. My name is Everett Olivan. I'm at AWS. I've been there for 3 years, and I lead our ERP practice for North America, Latin America, and for our global accounts. I have a great panel of customers today here to talk about how they've moved their Oracle applications to AWS. So let me first tell you a little bit about how we're going to do this. We're going to have quick introductions from each of our panelists, and then we'll get into the presentation, which will break into 3 parts. The first part will be to actually rewind the clock a little. If you know AWS and Amazon, we're big fans of working backwards. We start at the finish line and work backwards. Today, I'm going to break that rule, and we're going to work forwards. So by that I mean, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to talk about the situation they found themselves at the beginning of this journey, why they needed to make a change, and how their decision-making process went in selecting AWS, and also what that journey was like through the deployment. That will be the first section. And the second section, we'll go back and talk about what each of the companies learned in terms of lessons learned in their deployments, as well as quantifying the benefits that they've seen by moving to AWS. And then in the third final section, we'll talk about what's next. Instead of saying it's the beginning of the end, in this case, it's really the end of the beginning. So now that the foundation is in place, what are these companies looking at in terms of modernization and innovation? So with that auspicious list of things to accomplish in this hour, we're going to get started, and I'll ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their background, as well as their company, and then also what they are running in terms of Oracle applications on AWS today. Would you like to start, Tuan?
Sure. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm the CIO for Techcombank, the largest private bank in Vietnam. I've been there just for 3 years. I actually lived my whole life in the US and just came back in 2020 to become their CIO. Before joining Techcombank, I was a CIO, CTO for Fortune 500 in the US. A couple names you may recognize like Cisco, Capital One, Travelers, GE, a few of those. But really, my passion is technologies. And I worked in multiple industries in my career, from entertainment business like NBC, Universal, all the way to heavy machinery, oil and gas, from GE to fintech like Finastra and insurance and banking, all of that. But the thing that really fascinating to me is, if you have the understanding of how technologies operate, you can basically apply that to any domain, anywhere that you are going. So that's a little bit about my background.
Great. Michael?
Hey everyone, my name's Mike. I work at Kinect. I'm a VP and focus largely on architecture inside the organization. So Kinect is a global energy management company. We operate in just over 200 countries globally, about 8,000 locations, providing a mix of traditional and sustainable energy solutions for our customers. And in my career, I started as an app guy and then turned over into infrastructure, and have spent a lot of the last 10 years working with companies like Kinect to do cloud migration activities and building and architecting solutions on AWS.
Great, thanks. Mihir?
Thanks, Everett, and thanks for having me here. Myself, Mihir Shah. I'm the CIO at NETGEAR. NETGEAR has been in business for 25 plus years, and I'm pretty sure a lot of folks here would have some kind of a NETGEAR gear at home as well. And NETGEAR has been, I would say, leading with innovation in the networking space for home for years. And we are very passionate about what we do, what we bring in terms of internet connectivity, as well as we also have on the small and the medium business segment where we have switches, access points, which really help small, medium businesses to get connectivity throughout. A little bit about myself. I've been with NETGEAR for 12 plus years. I've worn multiple hats. I started as an individual contributor running Oracle DBA team. Then from that point onwards, was fortunate to bring in cloud. So we are an AWS customer for almost a decade now in terms of what we do. And fast forward to where I am in my role, I'm also responsible for bringing in cybersecurity at NETGEAR as well. So it's been a fascinating journey for me over the last 12 plus years at NETGEAR, and very excited to be here and sharing our story about what we have done with AWS over the last several years.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us here on stage today. We're going to switch up the order just so we don't always go down the row here. So let me start maybe, Michael, with you. Why don't you talk a little bit about where were you when this journey started? What caused you to need to make a change? What was your evaluation process? How did you end up making the decision? And then what did you actually deploy?
Cool. Thanks, Everett. So if we wind back the clock, it probably was about 5 years ago for Well Connect. So we're a global company. We largely grew through a lot of different mergers and acquisitions. So at this point, we had about 22 data centers acquired with each of these different companies. And at that particular point in time, we had a lot of challenges with both digitizing the business, growing the business, building out like single world-class capabilities that we can then leverage for our customer solutions, and also under the covers, just some pure hygiene challenges as well, like reliability. The business was losing confidence in the ability for us to operate these different platforms in the organization, and we had to do something. So we made the decision that we weren't going to continue to be in the data center business. We weren't going to host our own applications. We were going to build on top of the shoulders of giants and partner with AWS. So our mission then was to close down these 22 data centers and migrate each of those different workloads across into AWS. So across time, we closed 20 of those data centers, and then right at the end, I'm not sure whether it was intentional for us to leave some of the more complicated ones to the end, but we find ourselves looking at a whole series of Oracle applications. So we had everything from Oracle E-Business Suite, SOA, MDM, some others also in the mix. So we had a lot of Oracle challenges. On top of that, we also had a lot of custom applications built around our core EBS platform to successfully run our business. So that was our problem 5 years ago. So we migrated a lot of those data centers, and then specifically for the decision around EBS, so making the call to move to Amazon. So first and foremost, just we had a lot of experience with Amazon at this point. So all of our other applications are running inside AWS data centers, and we build a lot of confidence in AWS as our preferred partner. We like to say that we always choose partners who we aspire to be more like. And for us, Amazon is that partner. So that was the first key consideration for us in choosing Amazon for our Oracle workloads. I think for us also, like obviously we're a low margin business, cost is really important to us, but having the right partner is number one for us. So we were happy to work with Amazon and Oracle under the covers to be able to find a way to successfully host these Oracle workloads on Amazon, which was commercially viable for us. And then the gravy at the end of this is really about that digital transformation. So it's being able to then take these Oracle applications and either replace them with cloud-native services, or also in the case of EBS, then extend it with other analytical service offerings or other API service offerings that drive that digital change that we were wanting to do as a business.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Mihir, would you like to go next?
Yeah. From our perspective, like as I mentioned, we have been an AWS customer for quite some time. And we started with product first, right? So we have been having our products running onto AWS platform for quite some time. Now, as we fast forward into the data center aspect of it, sometime earlier this year, we decided that, hey, this is a good time right now to reduce our overall footprint, centralize it, and taking into consideration the security aspect as well, as a lot of you would be struggling on that aspect too. So consolidating was the key factor to it. We have close to like 400 terabytes worth of data that needed to be migrated into a public cloud offering or the AWS side of it. And what we did was, when we started the journey, to what Everett also was talked about it, like we set the date in terms of when we want to get it done. And after setting that in terms of, hey, this is the drop dead date by which we need to migrate so that we can manage all of the contracts and everything that we have around it. we were able to lay down the foundation. And as I think so, Mike also mentioned about his Oracle piece, Oracle is definitely a beast. We are also a big Oracle shop. We have different flavors of Oracle. We have Oracle E-Business Suite. We have OBIE. We have Hyperion, Agile, you name it, right? So how do we take that into consideration and come up with a migration strategy wherein there's the least impact to business? So that was the whole focus around it. We planned around it. And definitely the factors that were taken into consideration were, I would say, cost is something that everyone feels it's going to be challenging when you move to public, but we were able to make it, I would say, beneficial in NETGEAR's favor. The other aspect is security, as I mentioned to you, because that's something where a lot of people forget about in terms of, hey, in order to make security simple, you have to have a synergy around it. The third being disaster recovery as well. The aspect that what AWS was able to bring onto the table for us and how we were able to architect it, that also made a lot of value for us. And I would say the last but the final piece of the puzzle is modernization, right? Because we talk about it, when we talk about business applications and all, modernization comes at the last. But for us, that was a motivating factor with everything that we are planning to do with all this Gen AI. I think so today, I'm not sure how many of you heard the keynote, but that's the innovation that we wanted to focus and work on. And AWS brought that onto the table for us as well. Means Oracle, OCI, means you all would be talking about and struggling with that aspect as well. But for us was, you can't run an ERP on its own. But it has various components, it has various peripheral systems as to how it has been built and grown over the last several years, as to how we articulate that and build an architecture around, which makes it seamless and simple. So I think those were the driving forces for us, and it really made it the decision for us to move into this path. And I would say we are fortunate to get the entire data center migration done within, I would say, 8 months. So big kudos to the team that led this, and we are really happy with where we are right now.
Great story, and I love your themes around security, cost, and also innovation, which we'll touch on a little bit later. Now, Tuan, your story is a little bit different, unlike these first two panelists who had a great relationship with AWS and lifted and shifted their existing infrastructure to AWS. Your story is a little different. Why don't you tell us a little about that?
Sure, absolutely. So when I joined Techcombank 3 years ago, obviously I'm familiar with AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud and all of that from the US, right? Because I live and work here. But in Vietnam, it's a little bit different. So we really make a decision on technology based on the business strategy rather than because of some technical merit. And one of the things that you have to take note back in 2020 is, and today is still true, Vietnam is a growing market. So the business decision is, how do we become the first timer to go to the market with anything? Because whoever is the first one going to, in the growing market, you are going to capture the lion's share of the market share. So the name of the game for us is, how do we able to build and provide solution to our banking customer, quickest to the market, so that our customer can reap the benefit of it. So we look around. Obviously, the on-prem data center is not going to help us because we have to do all of that by ourselves. From the application side, we are the big Oracle client, probably the biggest in Vietnam. We run core banking on Oracle. We have Exadata, data warehouse, EBS, same issue that Mike has. Again, we have a host of Oracle product within our system. So if we continue on the current path we were at that time, there's no way we can improve the velocity and speed to market. And we look around, and one of the key things that we look is, why cloud? Of course, with the redundancy, with the reliability, with the uptime and security, all of that, we know for sure cloud will provide that kind of benefit. But to us, what is the difference between AWS versus Azure versus Google? So we actually evaluate all three. And of course, the decision land on AWS. That's why I'm here today. But the key thing why is really because of the ecosystem partner that AWS has. Keep in mind, we want to go faster to market. So if we want to build an app, and if we have to build that ourselves, every single widget, every single thing, then that will take a long time, right? So if we're just going to, integrate with some partner on AWS, we're going to buy a tool, we're going to, using the native service from AWS, we can have an app in like 2 days, 3 days, or a week or 2 weeks. And we have done that, by the way. So we actually evaluate and basically select AWS for that reason, that first of all, they have the biggest ecosystem partner out there. And obviously a lot of open source database and that kind of thing running on AWS, like Aurora and DynamoDB and all that as you can name, they are basically become, readily available whenever you want to use it. So that is the name of the game for Techcombank. Obviously, we have to do a lot of analysis because if you think about it, in 2020, there was probably about 20 to 30 AWS experts in Vietnam. And we are the new one, just signed a contract with AWS. And if we are going to go out there and hire people, stealing resource in another way, the max we can get is around 10 if we're lucky. But if we're not, then probably we have to pay them like a rock star salary, right? So the name of the game is how do we get the resource, which is in the hundreds, right? Because we have a big legacy system that we need to migrate to the cloud. And if we just depend on a few key people, few experts, then that will take us for years. And we want to have it done within 2 years time frame. So basically, another reason of why we pick AWS is they have the support system. We work with them. They basically help us to train our own people and put in different programs, the academy, the recruiting event, the hackathon, and all of that, so that we can basically train our workforce. And again, 18 months into the journey right now, around 60% of our workloads is running on AWS. And basically, we have trained over 6,000 people within the bank. Again, even for the people that are non-techie, they got trained on the cloud as well, so that they have a change in the mindset, a change in the understanding that right now everything is on the ecosystem on the cloud. You don't have to wait for IT to hand you a tool or something, that you can basically go out there and find the thing that really help you to do your job better. And that's why we train over 6,000 employees, almost more than half of the bank population. And from the IT perspective, we train and certify over 500, 600 people on AWS. So again, we cannot do that by ourselves, and the partner, AWS, were able to help us, and that's another key that make into our decision of why we select AWS.
Wow, that's a big investment in your people. And as I talk to CIOs out there, actually that change management aspect, that enabling your team to move to the cloud and to get certified in the capabilities of the cloud, is whether it's an architecturally or whether you said it's not a technical person, is really a fundamental concern and key way of making the right decisions for the company to enable the people who are going to operate these systems be able to do that competently and with confidence and to really push the envelope on innovation. So that's fantastic. Thanks, Tuan. Here, let me come back to you. So now you've decided to make this move. Maybe a little discussion about how the deployment went, how long it went, whether you took advantage, and for those in the audience who don't know, AWS has a lot of programs available to you, whether that's something like the Migration Assistance Program, which we call MAP, which allows us to make investments in that migration for you, whether that's a license assessment. We have something called the Oracle Licensing Assessment, so that if you have concerns over your licensing with Oracle as you move to the cloud, we can actually retain a third party to really look at your license entitlements and make sure that you can move with confidence, because as Mihir and others said, you can't get to cost savings if you're concerned about license costs. So whether it's an OLA, whether it's that MAP program for co-investment, or as you said, some of the investments we make in workshops or in upskilling the teams, a little bit about your project, any resources from AWS that you used, and then ultimately, as that project has gone live, and I know in your case it's been relatively new in terms of the go live, but quantitatively, what benefits did you get out of moving to AWS that you can share?
Yeah, so maybe let me start back as to how this was planned for, right? So in most of the organizations that, or I would say my peers that I've talked with, the struggle has been in terms of why AWS and how do you sell that to your leadership team as well, right? So building that into, I would say, the entire leadership team as well as to why we are doing this, what's the reason behind it. So building that whole story, so that for me, it started, I would say, sometime in second half of last year, that we started building about it. And I would say the pandemic helped fast track this pretty well for us because we can work from anywhere, everywhere. And the dependency on a location for people or for you have your systems was no longer, I would say, a question. So that basically enlightened a lot of leadership team as well. And then putting this forward that as to, hey, if we are going into this journey, then I also, since I wear the second hat on the security side, is like, hey, how do we use Zero Trust to be able to make this real compelling? So that journey started. I was fortunate able to talk to the board in terms of, hey, this is our plan, this is what we like to do, and got the buying in for starting this. Come January of 2023, we got the team involved. The first thing that we did was a migration assessment program. So I think that was the best piece from our perspective, bringing in AWS team in, bringing in the NETGEAR team together, and making it a reality. And how we started with this is, okay, we are sitting here. What is the timeline that we are looking at? Are we looking at 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, 24? I said September 30th. And then like everyone, including the AWS team, it was a fun time. Like they say, hey, are you smoking something? I said, no, man. But it's, the reality is that at the leadership, it goes from top down, you set the tone, why? And then we followed everything related to helping out the engineers within the team, what they need to do, right? Oracle assessment, like I have my fellow colleague here as well, who led that in terms of the entire Oracle licensing aspect to it, right? Because that's where a lot of people have that fear aspect to it, that, hey, what is that going to be? But if you are transparent and open in terms of knowing what Oracle licensing you have and how it can be converted into a cloud ecosystem, that eases a lot of aspects associated to it. And in fact, once we moved away from RAC, right? So it's like, how do you get high availability without RAC, right? That's the first question mark in terms of Oracle. But the well-architected review, working with the respective AWS folks who come from the Oracle background, working with us, and then talking about the storage capabilities that were possible onto the AWS stack, which made it even better for us, right? So then we leverage those capabilities in terms of, hey, these are the various services that they have to offer. And then at every step, we had a kind of a well-architected review, right? So whether it's migration, so using the tool chain for migrating, we in fact enhanced the migrating utility that the AWS had built with giving them the feedback in terms of what lessons we learned. And fortunately for us was they acted onto it fast. So while our migration was happening, enhancements were made and our migration became simpler aspect to it. And last but not the least on the security side of it, right? So it's like encompassing the whole thing as to, okay, yeah, once you are there, then how do you make sure that your security is tightened and well built in? Good thing about NETGEAR is that we had a team which knew AWS since we were on an AWS shop or a customer for quite some time. So we were able to bring in that team and enhance their knowledge, their skill sets, leveraging this to be able to build an ecosystem onto AWS, working with all the peripherals applications that we have, and make it a closed loop, right? So it's like for us now, we don't have to worry about how the data is going to move, where it's going to be. We use a lot of SaaS applications as well. But constructing that architecture and taking into consideration the Zero Trust framework, we were able to achieve this within the timeline as we mentioned, within 8 to 9 months, moving the entire data center, including Oracle workload, without impacting business. So that was something that I feel very proud about the team as well in terms of achieving something like this in the time frame that we had set. But this wouldn't have been possible without the AWS support. Like every step, like we had weekly, in fact, sometimes we had daily calls with the AWS team, experts were brought in, they came to office, did whiteboards, and we made sure that we are focusing on the issues in a way that it is an opportunity, right? And not solving it, but how do we, as we migrate, as we get into it, how are we building the opportunities as well? So that was our mindset and our focus and our journey in terms of how we approached it. And AWS had been with us every step to make this successful.
Maybe just two quick follow-ups there. Such a lot of good nuggets in there to ponder. First of all, you mentioned migration readiness assessment and MRA, and for the audience, that's another construct we have to make sure that before the project gets going, you really have all your ducks in a row. So in addition to MAP and the OLA, there's an MRA. We have a whole portfolio of workshops and tools to make sure that this journey is a positive one for you. And then also you had mentioned that you decommissioned RAC. Can you just maybe talk briefly about that decision and how that was possible using AWS?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure whoever knows about Oracle licensing, right? That every piece, everything that you do costs you money. And the way that traditionally, if you have it within the data center ecosystem for high availability, you absolutely need to have a RAC ecosystem. Now, for us, our business use case and how we leverage the various technologies within AWS, I think so we were able to identify a way that, hey, worst scenario will be down for seconds. Now, in order for getting that high availability and getting up to that level, should we be paying millions of dollars, right? So it was a business decision that we worked with various business stakeholders, got their buying in, and proved it using testing before we even went live with that. That, hey, this is how we do it, this is how it works, with multi-AZ and all those capabilities, which means running on e-business suite, we can't customize too many things within the application ecosystem platform. So taking those, I would say, restrictions or considerations into picture, I think so we feel very comfortable and confident right now. In fact, it has become more simple, right? It's like running such a big workload onto a single node, and then also having the peace of mind that, hey, it's not going to be down. And even if it is, then you're talking seconds. Then definitely was a big plus for us.
You also mentioned well-architected reviews and well-architected framework. Those are yet another set of services that our architects, our enterprise architects, can take a look at the designs and make sure that really architecturally speaking, you've got best practices, and I know you took advantage of those as well.
It's free, right? I'm a cheap guy, so it's like AWS gives you everything for free. You ask, they give you, right? So again, they are sitting here, but that's a fact. It's about us asking, right? That, hey, I have a problem, who do you have? And so far for us, like, yeah, if you ask, it's like we tell our kids too, right? You don't get anything without asking. It's like it applies to us too, that you ask and you get help. That's what we learned with AWS, that they had everything covered and ironed out. And where they did not, were, I would say, having the skill sets or everything, they brought in the partners, right? So like in terms of, let's say, a good story for us, right? We talk about S3 and backups. Sorry for taking more time, but we are not using the native AWS backup solution for running this ERP backups. We work with AWS because we had certain use cases as to how we want to use the backups, and we were able to use a partner who is also an AWS partner as well. To be able to build that, and AWS came back, their architects came back, oh yeah, this is great. We are going to sell this to other customers of ours who are having these kind of a use case. So it's like learning from us and not with the mindset of sell, sell, sell. It's like, hey, you did a better job, you architected better. We are going to learn from you and go and give it back to our other customers who might be in need. So every lock, step, and barrel, the well-architected review aspect to it definitely helped us big time.
Maybe just last question for you. In terms of quantifying the benefits, I don't know if there's anything that you can share there. Obviously, getting through an entire move like that in 9 months in and of itself is impressive. But how did you evaluate the success beyond just a successful go live in the time frame that you allocated?
So there are multiple pieces to it. As I started talking about, is like Cost, I think so everyone, it's status quo, right? And I talked about disaster recovery aspect to it. But the biggest, I would say, value or from NETGEAR's perspective was twofold. One on the security side of it, because what we were planning to do and how we wanted to get the best value on that. And the second is the modernization aspect of it. So for me, change is the only thing which is constant. That's what I believe in. So how do we constantly look for that opportunity to get better, right? So it's like there was always an opportunity for us to bring change. And what I have learned over my tenure with AWS as a customer is that there's always an opportunity to get better, right? So that's where I quantify it. Again, in terms of when you talk about percentage and all, it's just a number, right? You can throw up a number and say efficiency went up by this, but if you look at it in terms of the people, I believe in team, I believe in the people aspect to it. They personally grew in this journey, right? As someone who does traditional data center, who does just storage, does just networking, the job is racking, stacking, upgrading just operating system. If you take that piece out, the person feels that, hey, am I going to lose my job? It turned around. Oh, wow, this is awesome. I can do so much now. I learned so much. Was able to bring in a lot of value. And now they are the ones who are coming in selling to me saying that, hey, why can't we use serverless for certain aspects to it? So it's like giving back to the team who has been with you. So those were, I would say, from me, the real value compared to just the numbers. Numbers are there. Like, if I don't hit the numbers, I'm sure I won't be here. So, but yeah, that's a reality.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Tuan, how about you?
Well, I have to agree with me here that every single step of our journey have been married to the hip with AWS folks, ProServe in particular. They done, all of the well architecture design review, hand-holding us, building out the landing zone, the first landing zone, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to repeat a lot of information because I will tell you that I haven't seen any professional team that are working so well and so care about a client environment like that. So fast forward to it, right? I just want to offer a couple of the, again, maybe lesson learned that we haven't done well, and obviously a thing that you should be watching out is, again, when you do a lot of those kind of things, there's always things that you are going to be missed on both sides. AWS, ProServe side, and our team side, because we are newbie, we are new learner. So obviously we will make a lot of mistakes, and that's why we engage with AWS for the professional opinion. But even them, they also make some oversight sometimes because of not knowing the domain, not knowing the environment as deeply as we are. So that is understandable. But one other thing that I have to stress and bring to your attention is there's a term called CBO, Cloud Business Office. I don't know whether it's applied for you guys or not, but for us from the financial services, because our goal is to transform the bank to become a digital cloud-based bank, not just a legacy on-prem legacy kind of bank. So not only just migrating the app, but how are you migrating and modernize all of your app? How are you operating this app on the cloud with the skill set that you can, services, maintaining it, maybe build it your own, automating all of the deployment CI/CD and using all of the native AWS services, and how do you optimize the cost? Because again, I have to tell you that if you don't watch out for your cost, it could be higher than what you had in the on-prem. Lucky for us, we are very, very kind of monitoring and watching the bottom line. And AWS has been helping us big time on it. They have a methodology, I don't know if you guys are using it or not, they call it the indexing. Basically, they compare your organization against like side and in the same industry that you are operating in the cloud environment, and they will give you a score, whether you are, 60%, in that score, or you're 50%, or you're 30%, or you're 90%, and the higher the percentage, the better you are in terms of managing your costs in the cloud. And again, I'm very happy that my team, and I'm proud of them, that we are in the top level of our country and in our financial sector. But that takes a lot of learning. from looking at whether we are using the right EC2 instance, the S3 type, all of the services, Lambda, and all of that thing. And it will cost you to learn, but hopefully you learn it quickly and master that skill. So don't overlooking that. And that's one of the key things that I want to share, that making sure that you have a longer term in building out your skill set, how to run the infrastructure going forward, not just do it one-time migration and modernization and then operating with the old mindset of how you run the infrastructure on-prem. Because on the cloud, it's a completely different mindset. You have more data available at your fingertip, more real-time, that you can make adjustment rather than wait until a month or 2 months later to say, oh, this is a big bill. So that's another thing that I think you need to be paying attention. But beside the cost side, there's operational guideline, procedures, security review. Today, we're still working with AWS team to review on how are we optimizing the security on the landing zone. How do we, create a DR site, even though technically you don't have to worry about it, but because just so you know, in Vietnam, we don't have AWS like in the US. We have AWS in Singapore only. And there's a Singaporean failure because of the cable between Vietnam and Singapore. If the cable got cut, I don't care what AWS on cloud or not, we cannot reach them, okay? So that's a different resiliency issue of how you're designing it. In the US, Europe, or other, you take it for granted, which is great. But for our environment, we have to make sure that we build redundancy around it. And that's why we have to have a DR site on the cloud, believe it or not. But those are the real problems that I think that organization will have to be really considering on where you are. I'm pretty sure that your organization will have to think the same thing because you are global. So those are the kind of things that I think you need to be mindful and not only just do it once and happily launch and go, but how do you operate and continuously review and improve upon what you have done. So that is the thing. In terms of cost saving, I tell you that Techcombank has definitely see the saving of moving to the cloud compared to the on-prem. And this is in a double digit, 20+%. I have to say it in a very, very frank way. Basically, if we compare the cost of on-prem before and the cost of the similar capacity that we are running on AWS on cloud, there's the remarkable saving. Even though we're still running hybrid, because only 60% of our workload is on cloud at the moment, but we do see the advantage of continue to push to go to the cloud further. But one other thing that I couldn't get with the on-prem infrastructure was I would be lucky to have 3 nines out on-prem. But seeing all of the app, all of the system that we have migrated to AWS, they are 3 9 or 4 9 easily. And I can sleep well. I can tell you that I haven't get any problem with the one that we have moved up there. Besides, the cable incident that, nobody has control over, then obviously we have to give up on that and we have to build a mitigation plan for it. But cost definitely take advantage of the MAP program and not only MAP, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and there are multiple layers of maps on top of it. So basically, I think we was definitely seeing the saving from the cost side.
Amazing. I'm glad to know we're helping you sleep well at night. That's very good to know. Maybe just a comment and then one follow-up question for you, Tuan. So first of all, I think for the audience, everybody listening, that cost component of the cloud is not specific to AWS. It's just the cloud in general. It's such an important thing to keep an eye on. And I would invite all of you who are either AWS customers today or prospective customers of AWS today to really challenge your own account team. Not only do we have a lot of tools within the AWS stack to monitor costs, to set proactive alerting on costs, but also that we talked a little bit about a well-architected framework, WAF. We also have WAR, well-architected reviews. And I'll never forget the first time I walked into a customer and before we started our meeting, the account manager said to the CIO, Ms. CIO, just want to let you know we did a well-architected review of your implementation and we think we can save you X thousands of dollars per month. If you change your EC2 instance, if you make these changes, you can still get the performance you're looking for, but we can actually take the price of your bill down. And she sort of looked at this rep. Like, why in the world would you do that? And the answer is simple for us. We believe that if we can help you run your implementations and deployments at the lowest possible cost, you'll take those savings and redeploy them into modernization and innovation. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the coming minutes here. But that's something that you can do at any point in any time of the year, is to really seek our guidance on how we can drive cost out of the equation and to make sure that the bills aren't a surprise to you. So it's a super important lesson for all the CIOs out there. Maybe just one question about your actual deployment timeframe as you look to move your Oracle assets to AWS. Can you tell us a little bit about how long that took?
Yes, so again, just to remind everybody, we are a big Oracle shop. So our core banking is running Oracle. It's still running on-prem because running and moving the core to the cloud is almost like a heart surgery, and we want to do that last. We don't want to do that in the phase where we are still learning about the cloud and not as experienced about it. So that we haven't done that yet. But for other systems that are related to the banking industry, for example, fraud detection, AML, anti-money laundering, and OFSAA, Office of Financial Analytical and Application, basically all of the application that we need to run the report to the regulators, based on the quarterly or monthly requirement. So all of those are the things that we have migrated to the AWS, running on RDS, Oracle RDS services. The beauty about that is with the RDS Oracle, we basically have the same skill set that the team already familiar with Oracle, so they can continue to manage and monitor and provide proper support. But we can also bring our own license. It's basically a swap of on-prem license to the cloud license, like for like, and basically you don't have any additional cost that you have to pay for moving there. But obviously, the biggest saving that we are targeting to do in the next phase of migration for the heart surgery is the core banking and the data warehouse. Again, the data warehouse is a huge monster, and it will be a big saving for us. We have the data lake on AWS already, but again, that probably will be another a year or so to get it off, because so many reports, so many usage by different departments within the company that leverage that data warehouse. So again, our plan was to have everything off the on-prem to cloud is within the 4 to 5 year. Our 5-year strategy is ending by 2025. So I have another year and a half, or maybe 2 years max, to complete that journey. But we were able to, like I said earlier, move very fast from 0 to 18 months, and we already have 60% of our workload running on AWS.
Amazing. Mike, let me turn to you. Your story at World Connect is also amazing, so please enlighten the crowd.
Yeah, so the full end-to-end project was roughly around 18 months long. So if we talk about where we were on older versions of EBS, older versions of Oracle databases. So this for us wasn't just a cloud migration, it was also an upgrade of pretty much every single component inside the Oracle stack, and it was a lot of work. And I guess in terms of like my first top tip or first lessons learned around this is bringing the right people together to solve the right problems as part of tackling this. So if you were at our talk yesterday, like you would have heard that we explicitly chose to keep World Connect in the driver's seat on this, but we brought in partners and with different specialties to be able to solve some of the complicated problems. So licensing, it's the one everyone thinks about. It's the first question you get. There are people who know how to answer every single licensing question you can throw at them. And the good thing is a lot of them are free. Amazon will help you. They know that's the first thing you're thinking about. So like bring the right people together to set you up for success to start with. I think the next thing I'd throw out there is also like, I feel like in some cases it's easy to pick OCI, it's easy to pick Oracle at this juncture, like on this journey, like that's the safest thing you possibly could do, but it's not always necessarily, depending on your circumstances, the right thing for your organization. So like there were many moments in our journey where we could have gone safe, we could have chose something different, and like looking back, that's something that we're very proud of to say that all of our workloads are now running on AWS. In terms of bringing the right people to the problem space, I'd also encourage you to think not necessarily just about Amazon partners, but also like the people in your organization. We had a lot of success in bringing in expertise from other application types into the group to bring in specialties around test automation, cloud automation. A lot of these skill sets initially wasn't in a lot of our core Oracle team, so they needed help from other areas in the organization to be able to make this primarily a lift and shift, but making the system slightly better every time you touch it as well. So as part of this 18-month transformation, we eventually got to phase 3, which was the golden migration up into AWS, and it was I'd like to say it was smooth sailing, and it mostly was, but it was definitely many hours of us coordinating hundreds of steps across many different teams to be able to get this application running inside AWS. And from a benefits that we're seeing across our environment now that we are running inside AWS, the first one for us is performance. Now, it's hard to compare the original Spark Solaris stack that we had with what we're now running inside AWS, but as an aggregated measure, we're seeing roughly a 20% improvement across the different functions that we have. So it's an Oracle EBS platform, so this could be concurrent jobs or end user experience, but our business was very excited after this 18-month journey to be able to leverage a system which was snappy, that they had confidence that they could build a global organization on top of. And we're a low margin business, so like the better our EBS platform performs, the better our business performs. So we were very happy to see a performance improvement across our environment. On a cost perspective, like transparency is amazing across our business group, and we've seen some really positive changes in our business's thinking around, like, do you really need another replica of our Oracle environment for you to be able to perform another function? Like, do you really want to pay this amount of money for that? Or is there a better solution? And we'll talk about opportunities in a second, but certainly cost visibility and transparency across these Oracle platforms was another intangible but significant benefit that we saw in our environment. And last but not least, for us, building resiliency into the platform was important for us. Jorge at our talk yesterday was feeling very proud that we've recently failed over our database from one node to the other to perform like no outage-based patching, and we never had that capability previously. And we're looking forward to doing our next EBS patching event and looking to pull off something very similar in that space too. So like being in a position that we can confidently operate the platform at a cost-effective point and leveraging the talent that we had in the organization and partners is how we were able to get this EBS stack and all of the custom applications that go with it running in AWS.
Fantastic. Snappy. I like that.
That's what we want, right? Snappy systems.
That's what we like. We're going to move to the third and final part, which is sort of, as I said at the beginning, the end of the beginning, right? So now that you have moved here and you're still in your journey, which is amazing, just talk to me a little bit about what modernization and innovation means and how you plan to leverage native AWS services to complement your ERP ecosystem. Here, maybe you could start first.
Sure. So thing is, the way that we envision in terms of any application is what's next, right? Like we don't sit onto it saying that, hey, yeah, we did it, we went live, now let's enjoy the rest of the time. But that's never the case. So the way that we are envisioning, and especially I think so the buzzword Gen AI, it's a reality, right? And what we are trying to do is identify use cases. So the key use cases for us is on the productivity side, like employee productivity is something which is extremely key for us and the way that we have running our ecosystem. The second being on the customer support aspect to it, right? So there are certain components that we definitely need to support our customer in a better way. And last but not least is on helping out the engineering with the code base, right? So it's like we do a lot of software as well. So that's the next piece in terms of where the journey that we are taking and using Gen AI. Now moving the big piece of our ERP into AWS stack is to, hey, what do we do now, right? So it's like, unfortunately, Oracle is not going to support anything which is on-prem. So, but you don't run an Oracle on its own, right? Oracle is run through everything that runs around it, and I'm pretty sure that There is not a single system that says, hey, we are on ERP, and you don't have any other systems which augments your business model and how you make it happen. So that's where we are right now, and I quickly touched upon as to where we are looking for serverless in certain aspects to it, and constantly working with the AWS team as to whatever has been released today, as to how does it fit into our ecosystem. Rather than coming and saying that, hey, we have this, we are bringing them in, asking or telling them that, hey, this is what we have. This is what our ecosystem is. This is what we are using, right? Now, you help us understanding as to how your various portfolios, how your various services are going to fit us into this to take us to the next level. So we are working with a few of your leaders within the space and having a dedicated session with our IT team, bringing in business as well. So they also realize and understand that there is an aspect of improvement, right? So it's like there's business process changes that can happen. Technology can augment that. Rather than being considered as technology being the bottleneck, how do we use technology as the next way for them to make things easier, better for themselves, right? Not just for us, but for themselves. Like, good example is with Gen AI is, hey, rather than doing everything programmatically, if you are able to, a business user able to talk to a system in a simple language saying that, hey, how do I get this, or how do I do this, or hey, help me get the financial results for the last, say, 2 years or last 2 quarters. Imagine your finance team would be extremely happy, your operations team looking for the last moment shipments. Sure, I think so. These are aspirations from our perspective, but this is what the journey that we are looking forward to, as to how we can leverage AWS ecosystem and the platform and augmenting with other investments that we have done to make it happen.
I love what you said, that sort of moving your Oracle applications to AWS isn't the resting spot. It's really the foundational level, and then really thinking about how the business and the customer can really benefit from new technologies like Gen AI. It's really, I think, what is part of the buzz that's happening now out in the marketplace about these transformational technologies. Mike, let me go to you next. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's next for you?
Cool. So at WellConnect, what we're thinking about next is at a fundamental layer, we're looking to transform our database layer to use RDS and RDS custom. So when we made our initial migration, we made the decision just to host the database on EC2. So we're really excited to initially pilot, but experiment with like giving Amazon the platform layer and running the database for us. That lets us focus on innovation and less on the undifferentiated heavy lifting. So at a lower level, that's probably what our focus is going to be. We've been waiting to get EBS up into AWS, especially for all the custom applications that we build around our core EBS suite. So a lot of those are very traditional applications. We're looking forward to refactoring those applications using Amazon services, running on ECS, using serverless and Lambda, using a strangler pattern around EBS as much as we can to be able to remove more and more of the customization out of the platform and into high quality API and services that support the platform. And I'd say probably the other focus for us is around sort of analytics and not only being able to leverage some of our other analytical services. So we use Snowflake a lot in WellConnect as our data lake for the organization, but being able to move a lot of those kinds of heavy analytical workloads like away from the core EBS platform and leverage some of the other analytical services across Amazon and Amazon partners to be able to give the business the insights that they're after in the timeframes that they want them in. So I think they're the key areas of investment for us going forward inside WellConnect.
I love that refactoring of those satellite systems, because ERP is not an application. It's a collection of applications that in total provide enterprise resource planning. And so to be able to refactor and to take customization out is really a big driver for a lot of companies. And I really like the fact that you touched on advanced analytics as well. All right, Tuan, can you bring us home?
Sure, I'll try. So you probably heard, right? So we still have a couple key systems that we need to migrate to the cloud. And the decision, is still, and we hope that, in the next 6 to 8 months, we will have a analysis done with AWS to find out whether we should be, continue to run Oracle RAC on AWS, or should we run a different open source database for the core banking, because when we move the core banking to the cloud, we want to make sure that it has all of the native resiliency features built in. We don't want to have some, kind of that disconnected from that perspective. So that is a big decision, and we're still evaluating, and hopefully technology will advance and move fast. That hopefully, just like you attend the keynote session this morning, right? There's a lot of things that happening, and it's very encouraging. Like for example, the new S3 categories, and then also the thing that we are also looking into is generative AI. Everybody is looking into it. How are we able to improve our technology team productivities? And I really like the Q, kind of feature and functionality that AWS has. Hopefully that we can tap into that and, basically help the developer to do automation testing, migration, the old legacy code to the new code, do all of the other things that they have to do it manually and very labor intensive at the moment. So beside that, I think we are investing and trying to move quickly off our data warehouse, the Exadata, to the cloud, because that will allow us to have a central managed and basically single brain for the entire bank, so that every decision, every customer insight will be driven from that area. So we are, again, that's another big area that we need to do, and hopefully we'll get it done in the next year or so.
Well, I think you've heard from the panelists a lot of the additional things that you could do beyond just moving your Oracle applications, whether that's serverless, whether that's RDS, whether that's advanced analytics, and certainly our Bedrock generative AI solution, which will allow you to not only have that natural language interaction for the business to be able to access information, but our Code Whisperer product, which can help with code creation and streamlining, and there's other things like we're doing a lot with fraud detection and even looking at the chart of accounts for anomaly detection. The world is really limitless there, and I would encourage you all to reach out to your account managers. We certainly have a long list and growing every day list of use cases for generative AI in its interaction with ERP, and we'd welcome you to push us to the limits there and maybe even get a proof of concept up and running. We'd be happy to make those investments. So let me just wrap up in our waning moments here, and first of all say thank you to our great panelists for all of their insights. So thank you all very much for that. And also just leave as a call to action for everybody in the audience, engage us. We have so many services. We will give you workshops. We will come meet with you. You can challenge us. We're not going to turn the meter on and start charging you for things. We just want to help you in your journey, because this really is a journey. And so we want to partner with you. We want to meet you where you are. We want to help you create, and again, this time actually using working backwards. We want to figure out what the end state should look like and how we're going to work backwards from that end state to where you are today, and whether that's the well-architected reviews and the well-architected frameworks, engaging our services to get best practices, thinking about those satellite systems that incorporate around your ERP of choice. We're here to support you and to partner with you. We want a long-term relationship with you. We're willing to work with you to make sure costs are truly a benefit of moving to AWS to the maximum extent possible. Again, remembering we have MAP, our program for investing in your migration, as well as all the other workshops and services and the native services that we can bring to the table to help you. You heard a little bit about the S3 storage and about data lakes. So we're really here for you. We want to partner with you, and we're really invested in your success. So I want to thank our panelists again and thank all of you for your time today. And we hope you have a great reInvent. Thank
Most
you all.
of the things are free.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.